In this video, as part of the continuation of Amos tutorials, we are going to look at simple mediation analysis using structural equation modeling in SPSS Amos version 24. So for the purpose of this video, we have an example dataset from SAS JAMP website. That's where the data has been downloaded from, and these are the variables. We have motivation as a variable, overwhelm as a variable, and satisfaction as a variable. But these are manifest variables. So if you have so many number of items or indicators measuring motivation, you need to take an average across these items, and that represents the particular construct we are looking for. So for ours, the items were already average, and we have motivation as a latent construct, or let's say as a manifest variable. So, and for the purpose of this video, these are the hypotheses that we have. These hypotheses, you might not find it in their website, but for the purpose of this video, we are supposed to go with this. So for the first thing you need to do when you have such study is to make sure that your data is in Excel format. So when you have a data set in Excel format, it can be CSV or XLX or something like that. You need to import it into SPSS statistics. So the final thing you need to do is to make sure that after having it in Excel format, you can now import it into SPSS statistics. SPSS Amos only work with SPSS statistics. So when you have it in any other form apart from this software, it means that you will not be able to do. So we already have this. So the next thing is to open your SPSS Amos software. You can change the layout of your recent paper size to any. I always go with landscape A4, so you select this and you close. The next thing is to import your data. So you click data file, locate your data file. So this is my data file. You click on this, then you open. So it means that we have 100 observations, so our sample size is 100. So you click on OK. You can now save your input here. So you click on file, save as. So you can say sample mediation. So you press enter to save it. So the next thing is to view your data variables to know how you can work with them. So when you click like this, you see that we have three, but for the purpose of the mediation analysis we are supposed to do, which is simple, we just go with overwhelm, motivation, and satisfaction. So what we are supposed to do now is to draw our manifest box, then we can load our variables onto them. So since we are dealing with hypothesis, we need to go with our hypothesis. So our first hypothesis is that there is a negative relationship between overwhelm and what? Satisfaction. So what we are supposed to do is to draw two boxes. So we'll close this, drag, draw, do same. So we'll load our overwhelm and our satisfaction here. So for the purpose of mediation analysis, we are supposed to use the draw path, the single-headed arrow, which suggests what? Prediction from independent to dependent. We don't need to use correlation, which is zero covariances. So you just click on this, click and hold, and drag to this. So you see, it becomes green. So once you do this, it means that overwhelm is going to explain some portion of satisfaction. We know overwhelm is not the only variable or factor that influences satisfaction. So it can only explain a portion of satisfaction. So it means that we need to indicate that by adding an error term to satisfaction. So you click on this, add a unique variable to an existing variable. Click on this and you draw your error term on the dependent variable. So once you do this, you need to label it as error 1 or error 2. It depends on the type of model you are building. So I'll just click on select one object at a time, double click on this, you see variance, click on text, they will say E1, that's error 1. So when you do this, you can go with your analysis, but since we want to do everything at the same time, we'll still go on with our model. As I said earlier, Amos or structural equation model allows you to input so many functions or so many hypotheses into your structures so that you can get them at the same time. So we need to look for the second hypothesis, which is this. We want to say that motivation is positively associated with satisfaction. So it means that the only variable we need is motivation. So we need to draw another one here down. So how we do is to duplicate this boxes. So I'll just say duplicate objects, hold this and drag down. So this, I can't change it. I just need to drag my variable inside to replace. So you see, we are saying again that this one influences satisfaction. So we draw another regression arrow like this. So we want to say motivation, and since we already have an error term, we don't need to add another error term. This error term is enough. So you just ignore. So you can deselect all objects. So now the last hypothesis which we are supposed to look at, which is of importance to our study, is to find out whether overwhelm mediates a relationship between motivation and satisfaction. So this is motivation and satisfaction. So to get mediation, it means that overwhelm should be in the middle. So we need to draw another path here. So we're trying to say that motivation passing through overwhelm will lead to job satisfaction. So that's why the arrow is this way. And since we are drawing this line, we know that we are drawing a regression path saying that motivation will predict overwhelm, which is also likely to predict satisfaction. So we need to put another error term up here so we can close this. So you need to label it as error 2 to make the error terms different from each other. So we deselect again and we can run our mediation analysis. But for the purpose of the subsequent video, which will be on serial mediation analysis, we are going to use a function known as user-defined estimates. Even though if you don't check this or you don't put in your own estimate, you still get your indirect effect. But for the purpose of the next video, doing it will be simpler so that you can understand. So we need to label this regression path. So from the independent variable to the mediator is always the first path, which is alpha. That's path A. From overwhelm to satisfaction is B, that's beta. So if it was to be the Lavin syntax, we'll do motivation times alpha, then we can put overwhelm times beta. So for this, we only need to label the path. So we just click on select one object at a time, double click here, then we'll say path A. So we can see path A. We'll close, double click on this again, then we'll say path B. So it means that in order to get mediation, from motivation to satisfaction is direct effect. You are just trying to find whether motivation directly influences satisfaction. But since we're interested in mediation, we know that drawing a path from motivation to overwhelm involves the mediator, and from the overwhelm to satisfaction also involves the mediator. So these pathways need to be multiplied together in order to get your indirect effect. So we need to add it to our estimate. You just click here once, define new estimates. We say indirect, that's what we are looking for, equal to, then we say path A times path B. So we can save this, save as, so we'll replace it with this. So if you don't have any here, you can just say simple. You can even use A, B, C, D, or anything, then you save. So you close. So you see estimating simple. So once we do this, the next thing we are supposed to do is to go to analysis properties, check standardized estimate, because the estimates we get by default we get by default is unstandardized. So we check this. We look for indirect, direct, and total effect, but our focus is on indirect. We click this, come to Bootstrap. We perform Bootstrap because in SPSS Amos, Bootstrap is something you must pay. If you do not do that, for instance, let's check, close this, run. You see the user defined estimate will not be estimate because you did not request Bootstrap. The reason for using Bootstrap is that it's a powerful method we use in mediation analysis to evaluate the indirect effect of a mediator in the relationship between an independent variable and dependent variable. The reason for using this is that the distribution of the indirect effect is often skewed and not normally distributed, particularly when you have small samples. So as a result, the bootstrapping provides a way to access this effect without relying on normality assumptions. So even when you have the normal data, while doing bootstrapping, you are getting good estimates. So this is used more often, unlike the traditional method that we know of, which is the Sobel test. So bootstrapping is also more robust and sensitive for detecting mediation analysis, especially when your sample size is small or the mediation effect is very simple. And bootstrapping also allows you to generate bias corrected and accelerated confidence intervals for the indirect effect, which provide more accurate estimates of the uncertainty around the mediation. So this is from literature. So what we are supposed to do is to we should click on analysis properties, come to bias corrected confidence intervals, enter BC confidence interval. We can go with this. We will check perform bootstrap, change it to 5,000. 5,000 is commonly used in health research, social sciences, and other fields. So you close, then you can click on analysis. So because we input these pathways, it's going to give us a specific user defined estimate, and that's what we use to find out whether our pathways are significant or not. So you see, when you click on view the output path diagram, you see this is minus 0. So it means that the relationship between motivation and also what overwhelm is different. So the moment motivation increases, overwhelm reduces by 0.73. The moment overwhelm increases, satisfaction also increases, which we don't know whether it's significant or not, but this result looks unusual. So let's look at motivation and satisfaction. This one is also 0.89. So let's see whether this is also significant. So we'll check these pathways. So we need to click on the view text, go to estimates, and we have them here. So the first one is the regression weights, which is the unstandardized. So after checking and confirming your hypothesis, you can now come to standardized regression weights and use these estimates. So we should look at our first hypothesis, which is what? There's a negative relationship between overwhelm and satisfaction. Is this true? So overwhelm and satisfaction, we see that estimate is not what? Negative. So it means that we have what? Unacceptable hypothesis. Let's look at the p-value. Is it significant? It's not. So we are being saved by this p-value saying that overwhelmed satisfaction is positively associated with satisfaction. So we can check on the second hypothesis again, which is what? Motivation is positively associated with satisfaction. Let's look at motivation and satisfaction. So you see these arrows, they mean that prediction to the left. So satisfaction is the dependent, the independent is motivation. So you see the estimate is positive. It means that there's a positive link. Let's confirm this, whether it's significant or not. Let's look at this. So you see that we have asterisks, which are 3. So these 3 asterisks indicate that there's a positive relationship between, so it's significant. Any p-value less than 0.001 becomes asterisk. So we want to say that in our study, there's no negative relationship between what? Overwhelm and satisfaction is positive. However, this is not significant. And also with motivation and satisfaction, there is a positive relationship, which is okay for the second hypothesis. So the last thing we need to look at is the mediation, where we said overwhelm mediates the relationship between what motivation and satisfaction. So we'll close this. We can click on this scalers, go to scalers. You see user define what estimates. So you see this is what we had, which is what negative. So it means that the relationship between motivation and satisfaction, the indirect effect of what the overwhelm is negative. It means that it's reducing this relationship, which we see to be normal. We know that when you are being motivated but you are being overwhelmed, you are not able to perform. So you will not be satisfied with what your job. So let's check to see whether this is significant. So we go by our confidence intervals, not including 0. So when you have negative in lower confidence interval, or let's say in lower confidence interval and positive, it means that you have to bypass 0 to now start with the positive. So for instance, I have a confidence interval of minus 0.100 and we have a upper confidence interval of 0.200. So it means that in order to come to or to go to the last confidence interval, which is 0.200, I need to start from minus 0.100, finish the negatives, come to 0, and now start with positive, which is 1, 2. So it means that these confidence intervals include 0. So any confidence interval with one negative, if both confidence intervals, whether upper and lower, are negative, it means that it does not include 0. They are significant. And also, if all of them are positive, it means that they are significant. But if one of the confidence intervals, whether upper or lower, is negative, it means that there's no significance. So let's look for the confidence intervals. Let's try to see whether we can get it. Okay, let's check this. Okay, so let's look for bootstrap confidence intervals. So you see, so we are interested in what? Overwhelm for the indirect. So let's look for the overwhelm. So when you look at this, you see that after clicking on indirect effect, you see that we have this. You see that for the estimates for the others are 0.000. So we only have this and this. You see, so the lower and the upper bound. So when you look at the lower bound, we have negative here. Let's come to the indirect effect for the upper bound is what? Positive. So it means that our mediation analysis is not what? Statistically significant. So let's say for instance here was positive and here was positive, or both were negative, then it means that we had what? A significant result. So we have to reject the hypothesis that our mediation is what? Significant. You can confirm this with other softwares. So let's say for instance we are going to use Jamovi for this analysis. I'll just import my data very fast. Open, browse, send, just start. So let's say mediation. No, I think we have to use let me look for this. No, I'll use just which has all the features. So let's use just, let me import my data. I can import my SEM file. Okay, just start the same data. Go to SEM, mediation analysis. Let's put our independent. Our mediator was this, motivation, predictor, satisfaction, outcome. Then you see, let's confirm it here. So you see that from motivation to satisfaction is what? Significant. Indirect effect from motivation through overwhelming to satisfaction is what? Just look at the p-value, 0.844, and we have the negative here. So let's compare it with the output here, minus what? 0.122, but here is what? Minus 0.127. So these softwares give you similar results. So when you do that and you still do not believe your findings, you can use any available software, maybe Jamovi, just these are open source softwares, or you can even go with the process map go if you have to confirm your hypothesis before you can report your result from Amos. So this is how we perform simple mediation analysis using Amos.